We have Eric Reed on with me here tonight, and we're going to talk about marketing. And this is a topic that we're going to really kind of dive deep on because, what I think is interesting about this conversation and what I'm kind of excited about, Eric, is that we typically have a lot of real estate investor minded people on. And like I told you yesterday, it's really important for us to bring in like experts in other industries and see what they're doing and try to
Sure.
understand. Because frankly, I think we as investors, we get so tunnel visioned on some things
Hmm.
that we completely miss what may be going on in the market and what might be working in other avenues. So
Yeah.
I just like the variety. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you being on the show. And if you want to hear more from Eric after this, make sure you check out Rethink Marketing podcast. But really appreciate your time,
Yeah.
Eric.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for plugging the podcast there. We do rethink marketing quite a bit, and that's why I'm actually, excited to talk to you as well. I think there's, all business segments right now. I think in life you have to rethink things anyway, but particularly when it comes to marketing,
Mhm.
there's a lot of rethinking that has to be done right now. So I'm happy to and excited to any chance I get to talk to people about just some of the things that can be done or should be rethought in marketing.
So, well, let's jump right in. Like, you and I chatted yesterday, and
Uh-huh.
just to give kind of a heads up, is exactly what we're doing. A lot of real estate investors use direct mail, for
Mhm.
example. That's usually the go-to. We're not seeing, as far as I'm concerned, we're not seeing the response with direct mail as we usually see. What are
Sure.
some alternatives, or what should we be thinking about when we're dealing with direct mail to stand out?
Well, I think first of all with direct mail, it's one of those tactics that if you talk to a bunch of people, they'd say, "Oh, it's not a sexy tactic. It's not cutting edge. It's not anything that's new out there." But everything kind of goes in cycles, and so direct mail has always been a very powerful piece of marketing. I happen to think it's still a very powerful piece, but I would just ask people to always think of a couple things here. Marketing right now, we have to stop shouting at people.
Hmm.
So, marketing is a lot of shouting. If you're driving down the road, there's, you know, cash for your house signs posted up on the telephone poles, etc. There's,
Right.
a lot of places you look, you're being shouted at. And so we have to work harder on building a relationship. Well, how do you do that with direct mail? I mean, it's not like the people before you send it in, but I think I think we need to slow down and really understand that our message and what we're saying in the direct mail piece works. Direct mail doesn't work or not work. The messaging that you're sending to people is what works or what doesn't work.
Hmm.
Is it the same message over and over and over again? Is it something as simple as the same color paper that it's going out? Do people feel like you're personalizing the message to them, that you're talking to them and not shouting at them? So I believe that direct mail works well, but it really depends on what your expectations are. And if something is starting to fizzle and not work as well as it used to, then it's time to maybe change up that tactic a little bit or the message and then retest it and remeasure it.
Sure. One of the things I recently watched some training material on in sales, and one of the things that really stood out to me is finding ways. That he brought up something very similar. Regarding the shouting, and
Yeah.
it's almost a hard sales. He was suggesting that we need to find ways in which we can add some sort of value to the discussion. So I was
Yeah.
I
I,
was
I
racking my brains on if that's the case, like what kind of value could I add to a direct mail piece in which to change things up a little bit.
well, so let's paint out a little scenario of what the direct mail could be. So if you were sitting down, if we were sitting down together and to craft a direct mail piece, what would the overall message of that direct mail piece be? Because to understand that would kind of help me answer that question. I mean, what would we
Well,
want?
typically, to be as cliche as possible, typically what real estate investors do is send out a card that does exactly what you say, yelling at people. Usually it is a credit card. It's a not a credit card. It's a postcard that
Uh-huh.
has a font that looks like it's handwritten
Hmm.
and with some variety of colors. And it's scribbled on there, "We buy houses cash," and
Right.
then reasons. It's very
And I'm
loud
familiar with
and
those. I mean, I've seen them and so forth, but and I've worked with some clients in the past who've done similar things. But the where I was going with that is the message to the person opening it is it sounds like we're hoping that we kind of connect with them for they need, it's not really a want thing. We're whether they realize it or not, we're trying to uncover or identify a need that, hey, this might be the answer to what we're trying to do. This might be an
right.
opportunity for something that could be a benefit to them. So I think what says a lot about this is, you explained an email that sounds like if you had 10 people come to the room and say, here's what I send out, eight of those would look pretty darn similar.
Very
And
similar.
so, yeah, and so I think the way that and we probably have these in our system. Hey, we're going to send out email number one, or we're going to send, not email, I'm sorry, we're going to send out direct mail number one, direct mail number two, direct mail number three, etc. So I would throw those all out. And for me, I look back to my life when I was younger. There were times before I was a homeowner that I was looking for rent to owns, and so people, those were investment. I had a guy who I got in touch with who would buy houses for people who could be pre-qualified with a few issues, and then he'd do a land contract for a couple years and then flip the house over to them. And so um, and that was a scary proposition to me, but his approach was just very conversational in the direct mail piece. It was identifying with, and not to get too corny, but we're dealing with human beings, and bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, and there's all these different things that go on. And so I think we just have to, a big thing that's going on in marketing right now is called personalized marketing. It was happening before COVID. It's become more important during COVID. And it deals with that stop shouting at me mentality. People really want the messaging to come from marketing, to come from somebody that they feel like is a community member, feels like somebody that shares the same schools with them, that shares different things, depending how big your community is. If it's a
Hmm.
regional, but you really got to personalize that message. And so I just think that to go way back, I think an example of how to do that would be to just softly come in with, if this is something you're experiencing, this might be an option. And I know some people might be listening and saying, well, that's kind of basic and rudimentary, but you know, the basics are what we've gotten away from. And so I think you need to maybe, in addition to that, do what we'd call like an A/B test. And I'm sure that's being done out there by sending out a couple different versions, finding out which one gets some traction, and then doubling down on that and pushing it forward.
Hmm.
Um, I, and so that would be my piece to the direct mail. But I think there's an opportunity with some digital that I'll share with you here at some point, of creating an intender channel, which would be the digital version of what's going on with direct mail.
Sure. Well, what really sparked this thought was that we send out this marketing material,
Hmm.
which is usually direct mail, that's shouting at people. But in the end, when they do call in, my mindset is typically around, okay, how do I solve this person's problem? Because they're
Hmm.
typically calling because they have a problem of some kind.
Absolutely.
It seems to be, in my mind anyway, there seems to be a disconnect between the marketing material and what we're out to do. Does that make
And
sense?
it does. I think that's a common pitfall, if you will. Sometimes we're too close to what we're doing, and so we see it the way that we want to see it, with an end objective of what we want, and we really have to look at that from the objective of what the person that we're marketing with,
Sure.
and trying to build that relationship with, wants. So what would you say that disconnect though is in the investment real estate business?
Well, the disconnect is that, like you said, we're shouting at them, "We buy houses cash." If distressed properties, buy as is. Um,
Hmm.
but frankly, more times than not, when somebody's calling in, it it's that's actually the last thing on their mind. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually um, the property is, whether it's pre-foreclosure or there's some financial hardship or a parent has passed away, or it's in probate. There's all of these uh, these scenarios that we're really trying to solve or try to help them
Mm-hmm.
with or help them through. It's almost as much of a partnership as it is a
Mm-hmm.
we buy houses cash. um, and I'm trying to I'm thinking that it would be beneficial to have our marketing reflect that versus.
Yeah, well, I think so, but how do you do that in the printed word? And so, I think what's so important, just take into account you and I are looking at each other right now. Um, you look like you're in a pleasant background. You just your demeanor and your vocal, your nonverbal cues, everything makes you feel comfortable with you. Well, try communicating that in a direct mail piece. You can't. But
Mhm,
what you can do as a potential is, and everybody's either got a website, a Google My Business page, some way they've got Facebook page. Everybody has some connection to a digital existence right now.
mhm,
And if you don't, obviously you need to do that, because for me, if I was to come into the market and say, I want to do something a little bit different, I want to differentiate myself, and I want to be seen as somebody who's helping with a problem, because that's going to be what they hear from everybody. We want to help you with the problem. We want to help with your problem. But that's going to go a lot further if they actually know a little bit about you or feel comfortable with you. So how do you accomplish that with direct mail? And so what I would recommend would be a good tactic to try, is to send out a direct mail piece. Now I know that we measure everything ROI. If I spend X amount per piece, how much does it cost? What would I get back? But if we send out a direct mail piece encouraging people to go to our website or to go to our mikesmith.com, our personal page, and we have a YouTube video there, we have a couple testimonials, not from people who've necessarily helped, but from people in the community who we've worked with and who know us professionally, whether it's in a spiritual relationship or just whatever you do in the community. I would use direct mail as an entry point to get people to understand who I am, because there's that point before they meet you in person or on the phone that they're going to search you right away. Everybody's going to go to Google and search you. Is this
mhm.
person, what do I find out about them? So if they had a way to get to your site, if that direct mail could drive them to something more tangible, something with more substance, where they could feel comfortable with you, I would think that would be worth a test to see if you could drive phone calls. And that might be a way to take direct mail to more of a digital place. It's still being used as the tactic to get on the doors of the people, but there's an objective that you want to engage with people so they can hear you, so they can see you, and they can see what other people are saying about you.
Sure. No, that would be an interesting tactic. I've been trying to, the direct mail. We always put our
Hmm.
URL on there, and we do
Uh-huh.
get some people who navigate to the site because of it, out of curiosity. But one of the other things that you said that I think is really uh, particular, that I think everybody probably should make note of, is you said try to make it local, because I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many people call in thinking that I'm some national company, and they don't even realize that I'm in their backyard.
Yeah.
So I've been
And
even thinking about going as far as putting a picture of the state or something on the postcard, just to identify visually in some way that we're local.
yeah, I think well, I think that's, the adage is, well, they'll recognize the phone number. Well, landlines are quickly becoming a thing of the past, so the area code doesn't necessarily recognize that right away. I just want to jump back real quick to one thing you said. I know that that we mentioned the website, and I know that we do that, but I'm talking about a much more uh, soft approach, not
Hmm.
shouting at somebody that just says, "Hey, of course our URLs here." But what I'm saying to you, the point of this direct mail piece to you is not to toss it in the trash, not to say another one of these. I'm appealing to you that says, "Hey, look at, come to my website. life's full of like I said, good things happen to bad things happen to good people, etc. But I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be very powerful with the message. The desired outcome of sending that direct mail piece was the objective to get people to your site, not to make the phone call. I know it sounds crazy, but if they get to your site, the phone call is going to come if they like what they see. To go back
Sure.
to your localization part, I think I think now, first of all, if you send out a direct mail piece, you're going to buy zones, you're going to buy zip codes, you're going to buy areas that you want.
Hmm.
Um, but still, people go to their mail. They're used to getting stuff that might not be necessarily for them. It just comes to the house address. So I think it's very important that they pick up on that your local. I mean, I'm assuming that it's a very local business that's what
Hmm.
you're looking for. So because it's got to be in your geographic area. There's one thing that I mentioned earlier, which would go to the localization part. So there's two things actually. When you're looking at SEO, search engine optimization, and making the most of your search, it's not just about putting in Google words. It's not just about doing that because everybody's doing that and you're bidding on the searches. You really got to take it to a local level. The more we Google's important, but the more that we build relationships with our local community organizations and get backlinks on their websites and things like that, that's going to cause you to rank and search better in your local community. It's there's a lot of new tactics out there for what's called local SEO. It's very
Hmm.
powerful. But I think we move so quickly to try to get into the digital age that we forget that sponsoring the baseball teams, sponsoring the fish dinners at the community churches, all these kind of things. I'm sure a lot of people are doing, but those translate then into search traffic and building your reputation online. So
Sure.
uh, sometimes the old is even though it's considered to be kind of stale and slow moving, it can kind of work together with pushing us forward and getting more acquisition, which is what we're all looking for.
Sure. So, if just as a reminder, everybody, if you like to hear or learn more, make sure you follow Eric through his podcast, which is that Rethink Marketing. Definitely gonna. I'm sure you drop a lot of information that people can take action on, right, in in that show pretty regularly.
We do. The episodes are about 12 minutes long, but then we do those are when just myself and my partner Colin are talking. We just we started this because we used to go get breakfast a couple times a month and we just talk marketing, and we just thought, that we could help some people. We're about educating and pushing rethinking. And then we do have some significant guests that come on for longer episodes, and there's some good tidbits on there about things to try on marketing. And marketing doesn't have to cost $10,000 a month; it can cost $200 a month. There's some good tactics out there that if you talk to your local media company, they might not tell you about them. There's lots of good ways to market at very affordable entry points to try stuff out.
Well, in this episode, let's focus on that affordable side. You were talking about the online
Mhm.
marketing that people could take advantage of. What are some of those strategies and tactics that you're seeing right now?
Well, so I'm not a big proponent of Facebook advertising. I think Facebook is a social place. It's where people are, kind of being families online. However, in the space that many of your listeners are in, I think there's an avenue to do some Facebook advertising. And it's not from your personal page. You create a business page. It takes about literally about 2 minutes to create a business page off of your personal page, and there's something called boosted posts on there. So you can put out a post of your flyer of something you're doing for the direct mail piece that you would want to do, or maybe some kind of coffee talk you're having someplace about the investment property, whatever the end game is there. The point to this is that Facebook has what are called boosted posts. So you can take your post, and I'm sure many people know this, but
Hmm.
it's a very effective way. I use it for a handful of clients when it's the right client, and it's mostly business services and real estate type of stuff. And so you just boost the posts within a certain mile. You can pick the zone, you can pick the behavior, so it's very targeted, and you can do that for 50, 60, $150 a month and reach about 1,000 people a day in your geographic area that fit the profile you're looking for. So I would imagine most people are doing that. It's one of the most it's one of the most understood, affordable ways to digital market. But
Hmm.
what I would ask people to do that is affordable as well is all those types of tactics that you use, whether let's use this Facebook one as example, you're going to be driving people to your website. That's the
Hmm.
when they click on it, they're going to go to the website. And so there's something called an intender channel that is very high tech but easy to execute. An intender channel means is you're creating channels on your website of intent. So if somebody clicks on a boosted Facebook post and they come to your website, and your Google Analytics will tell you that they came there, you
Hmm.
built you put a pixel on your site, you can cookie them. You can do that through GoDaddy, through any of the website builders that are out there. You can Everybody has a friend in digital marketing these days, and they can help you do that as well. But essentially then you start building a channel of people who are showing intent. So the reason, but how do you know what the intent is? If you put out something specific on Facebook, or if you do something specific through an email blast, which would be the digital version of what you're doing on direct mail, you are aware of what that message was in either
Hmm.
one of those. And then you know from that specific day or the next 48 hours, that traffic, what came from that ad, from the UTM code or the pixel or however you set it up. Then you know that these people came from that specific ad where I talked about getting out of debt, maybe as an example. And so you
Right.
start to build a channel of, okay, these are people who are responding to getting out of debt. So now you remarket to those people with another ad that's a little bit more tailored to their intent. So that might sound kind of complicated on the surface, but it's really just a way of not just putting out stuff and saying, hey, we got people to our website. That's what 95% of the people do, and they stop there. To get to the next level, you need to understand why did those people come to my website? And then let's not stop there. How do then I start to do a drip campaign with them? Because their problems aren't, I mean, I guess I'm not telling you something you don't know, but the problem in when you're in that situation, that problem that pushes you to that point typically doesn't go away the next day when you wake up. It's lingering, and you've got to deal with
Mhm.
it. So I understand you are up against a little bit of time, but to understand who's showing intent, that would be pretty important. And again, that's a tactic that you can do for about $400 to $500 per month.
Sure. No, there's a couple things there that just to clarify for people. You mentioned the pixel. A pixel is a piece of code that Facebook or Google can provide that you essentially put in your header or into your website, embedded
Yeah,
into your website, and then it essentially tracks that user for you.
correct.
But what I think is especially interesting there is that what you're suggesting too is that if we retarget those people, um, you know, it depends on the marketing article a person reads, but it's pretty well known that you have to touch these people 5, 8, even a dozen times
Yeah,
for them to take some sort of action. This is a great cost effective way. If you're retargeting specific groups of people, it really allows you to keep that expense under control.
absolutely. You said something there. The best marketing book that nobody would acknowledge as a marketing book that was ever written was Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. It's over and over and over, but the best part about that is it's not shouting, it's not invasive, it's very polite. Okay, how about now? And some people might say that would be irritating, but the point is that I'm counting as a consumer of something. I don't respond and I don't do it purposely. We're humans. We don't respond to the first message that we get. And we can't, if you're in the business of what the business that your listeners are in, they're, they're, they're not, I would say that most of them are not timid, not shy people. It's a business where you've got to be a little, um, confident to have these conversations with people and to put these kind of deals together, and with the kind of transactions that are going on. So there shouldn't be any fear to talk to somebody over and over and over again. Again, we keep going back to relationship and shouting. It's just very important to understand that think back to when we got married or anything like that, or tried to date somebody. Um, we usually didn't fare too well if we just walked right up and started shouting at the person and telling them everything that we could do for them. There was more of a, bit by bit, small step by small step. And so I know that we want to get to the transaction. I know that we want to pull the person out of the market because there's a lot of people competing for that. But you just gotta you've got to focus on the importance of building that relationship in your marketing. You're just going to get better return on investment.
Hmm. No, that's especially interesting. You know, I think as real estate investors, some of us are very used to having multiple phone numbers for our marketing just to see, like doing some of that A/B testing that you're talking about.
Hmm.
So, translating that into a website where you're having different funnels essentially, or a different page marketing wise, so you can track that type of return on investment, that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah, I do think we've done an episode on the podcast. You and I talked about this briefly. Your website is becoming more and more obsolete. Google doesn't want, the it's not like the dirty little secret, but at the end of the day, if you never had to go to a website, Google would love that. Because you come up in search, your Google My Business is right there, your phone number's there, any type of content that you've put out, any kind of testimonials, reputation management, all that kind of stuff is sitting right there. But we do control, we us the people trying to do business, we do control the people that come to our website. And so even though a website is trying to become uh you know obsolete, maybe that's a strong term, but the website is becoming more and more obsolete by virtue of some of the things we just talked about. You should still maintain your website, and you should still keep the kind of content. And when we say content, I know that you ask 10 different people, they would say 10 different things. But when we say content, you know, the expectation when I come to your website based on the direct mail piece, based on something that you said, based on some referral that I got from out in the community, that expectation has to be fulfilled when I get to your website. And so, I believe that in this space, less is more on your website. A
Hmm.
scrolling one page with just some links out to um, whatever referrals, houses that whatever is a positive story for you. I do think that the tactic of communicating directly with people, whether to their homes, whether they're in communities, getting them to your website, and then using that technology on your website to create those recurring conversations. To me, I think that's where the magic is for any marketing.
Sure. So you were talking a little bit about that video,
Hmm.
creating something. It sounds like essentially you're driving them to a website, maybe having a video of some kind there. It could be testimonials, but could you talk maybe a little bit about like what type of content seems to work really well, like that would attract people there to build that know, like, and trust that we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So in this relationship, I think emotional content is when you're dealing with the subject matter and the business segment that we're dealing with. I think it would be emotional. I don't think humor and fear. We're uh, once a year there's the big football game and humor ads take over,
Hmm.
and you see all the insurance companies now preying on fear, not fear so much to scare you, but fear of, man, I don't want my daughter to have her car break down and not have access to some way to get help when she needs it. So take this precaution, or the clapper, or life alert, all those. So in this space, we don't want to play with humor. I don't think we want to play too much with fear. I think this is about being genuine and I mean, this is a big thing. I mean, the reality people are leery of certain business segments, and for right or wrong, this is a business segment that people are nervous going into. It's a financial exchange. It's a house. There's a lot of things going on. They're hearing from outside noise that, hey, are you asking this question, are you asking that question? And so you've really got to, because you're not in those conversations when they're talking, if they should reach out to you. So you've got to do some kind of video. It's simple on your computer. You can put it up on YouTube, create your own YouTube page. It's free. Link it to your website. All this stuff is easy and free to do. And if you just had a video about I like to tell people, flip the shoes, put yourself in their shoes and say to people, hey, here's the 5 questions that you should be wondering right now if you're considering this. And so I would communicate with them and say, here's what you should be considering right now. So I just think if they feel like you're being honest and that they feel like you're being, because they're going to want to believe that everyone is. And so if they just feel that you're a real person and that they feel comfortable with what you're saying, that's what I would put in the videos. It would almost be like a video series that says "Get to know Eric" or "Meet the Reeds" or something like that. And if that sounds corny, it, business is a crowded. There's a lot of competition in the world right now in business, and so if you're afraid to be a little bit different, then you're always going to be running in the middle of the pack. You need to do something a little bit different. And I think opening up and showing that you're vulnerable, showing that you're a professional business person, you're successful, um, and you do care about them and you want to help them. And it's okay in those situations to have a business transaction. It's okay for you to make money in what you're doing. This isn't like a one-way street. I want to help you, but yes, there's benefit to me, and be open and honest about that.
Hmm. No, that's especially important there that I wanted to call out, being open and honest, and you don't have to apologize for making money. I mean, they
Right,
know you're doing that. I mean,
right.
I'm guessing that that's probably even a breath of fresh air to people if you just are open and honest about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we get way too, this is my personal philosophical opinion, is we think that marketing has to do something. We think that marketing has to be, let's get them to feel this way. It's the old, you go back to this, all the sales movies where, all the tricks to get to close and all that kind of stuff. The reality is marketing is, you know, the girl down the street who has the lemonade stand. Marketing is her sign over her lemonade stand that says 10 cents on it. Marketing is her little basket of cute little things that she has there, and you just want to support her lemonade stand. So we have to stop thinking about marketing has to be something that grips and pulls people to me. Marketing has to be something that tells an honest story of who you are, and then you'll get the return that you want.
Hmm. Well, it feels like we could continue this for a lot longer, but I promised you I'd keep it to about 30 minutes.
Well, I hope I shared something. Sometimes in marketing we can talk about the same things over and over. So I hope I maybe gave a few things. At the very least, if you're not going to change anything, if you want to do all the stuff you're going to continue to do, just stop for a second and just think, are there any little tweaks that I could do it? Do I want to be more human? Do I want to be more of a relationship? Do I want to do things a little bit different than I've been doing for the past 4 years, 5 months, whatever it is? You've constantly got to be changing your approach, or you'll never know what works better than the next thing.
Right. No, and in this, especially now, everybody's trying to make the absolute most out of every marketing dollar. We
Hmm.
want to see that return on investment, and spending some of that money in marketing, especially when you're starting out in real estate investing, is frankly a little scary.
Hmm.
You're worried that that money isn't going to come back in some way. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that some of these ideas and strategies, because I do feel like we need to have a different approach.
Yeah, I'll give you one other tip that they might not like that I'm leaking this out, but I used to run sales and marketing for Gannett in the Midwest for healthcare, and all the radio stations, all the newspapers, all the TV stations, they're all scrambling and coming up with things to be a part of the solution, and not just be a one-sided relationship where we take money and put this out. If it didn't work, there's no guarantees in marketing. That's been flipped a little bit. Every you should call your media companies in town wherever you're at and ask them about pay for performance programs, because
Hmm.
most of your and I know, are you familiar with these at all?
No.
So a lot of media companies now are doing pay for performance, where you sign a contract and they give you a lot of advertising. You just have to start to give them a percentage of the sales that you make off the ads. Now, that might be a proposition that somebody doesn't want to give up money, but that's marketing you don't pay for until it turns into a deal for you.
No.
It's
And
it's it's worth
that's
investigating.
yeah, and that's definitely worth a question. I mean,
Hmm.
um, so Well, I appreciate all of your time here, Eric.
Sure.
Again, I want to point everybody to your podcast, the Rethink Marketing podcast. Make sure you check that and subscribe to Eric's podcast. I think you've easily found enough value in our show here tonight to
Okay.
make it worthwhile to definitely go check out his podcast and some of those resources. I'll make sure to include all of those links in the show notes. But um, I know you're out of your box a little bit here, Eric, being on a real estate investing podcast. But I
Yeah.
think it's, like I said, it's important to have these points of view from other sectors. And
Well, yeah.
I
Well, I
appreciate your time.
appreciate. Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I appreciate you having me on. I like. It's nice to speak to a group of people who aren't, in all the same marketing circles and so forth. So, yeah, it's exciting. I love to see businesses thrive and succeed. And so, if anything was shared here that can help, that would make me feel good. So,
So, well, I appreciate it again, and hope we can do it again sometime.
okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.